welcome to the Fuel the Fight podcast. I am Lieutenant Colonel Nick Behringer. We are back in a new studio setup for 2023 with two awesome guests, Captain Nicole Curtis and Sergeant First Class Randy Adams. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so we were just, talking and talking about this new studio and how much we enjoy it. But what I want to start off with is kind of how you two intersect. Can you start off and tell us how you met? Like, why are you sitting here now?
Well, you go ahead and start.
Sure. I'm Sergeant First Class Randy Adams. So to answer your question, sir, how we intersect, I was an inpatient at Brooke Army Medical Center at the burn unit, and when I started, I was in the ICU. That's where we initially met. And this was my dietitian. So everything that I needed daily to supplement myself, changes in my diet to regain my strength and in different areas of my body that had deteriorated while I was in a coma, Captain Curtis assisted with that and helped me get to 100%.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. You wanna?
So I'm an Army dietitian, and I was completing the Army's first burn and multiple trauma fellowship at the Institute of Surgical Research, and heard we were getting a soldier in from Chicago, and that he was pretty critically ill and had been for a month. And so you don't really know exactly what's coming in until you see your patient. So that is where I met Sergeant Adams, was providing care at that time when he arrived. He was on a ventilator, he wasn't able to eat or to drink, he wasn't really awake, and so I was responsible for providing the nutrition support to help him recover.
Wow. So yeah, I wanted to start off that intersection, and then let's back up a little bit because Sergeant First Class Adams, you were in Security Forces Assistant Brigade, high-speed soldier, deployed to Afghanistan, did all these things, and then you were home in Chicago visiting. Make sure you correct me if anything,
Yes,
and you were assaulted.
Yes, sir. I was on leave.
You were on leave, and could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I don't think you remember the assault, but then like what transpired there?
Like at the actual.
Right. Yeah. If you can.
Like, essentially, I was jumped on, and got my face, beat up pretty bad, and I ended up having a blood infection. So because of that circumstance, sepsis set in like through my body, and that's what caused like multiple organ failure and necrosis, which is like the deterioration of my skin. So they had to induce me into a coma so I can be hooked to all of those machines and revive my organ function, kidney, heart. They were contemplating on opening my chest up. Like I almost had to get an open heart surgery. Same thing with my hands and my feet because of that necrosis and whatnot, and edema and a bunch of other medical terms. I don't want to flood this out with, but they were gonna amputate my hands and feet. So by the grace of God, that decision was not made, and I still got it all going on, obviously here. But that's in a nutshell, that's what took place, sir.
And so, how long were you in a coma?
Approximately 30 days.
Wow. So 30 days in a coma. And then, if I remember correctly, so you were in Chicago for a little bit. The military didn't know where you were, right? Is that accurate? Again, like, so, because didn't BAMC have to do something to kind of pull you?
Yes, I was supposed to report to Germany. I was waiting on my orders to change. While I was in Chicago, I caught COVID, and this is during like the height of it all. And they had to postpone my PCS, it was a mandate, like you couldn't enter into Germany
Right.
if you had a positive test. You had to have a negative test in order to enter. So I had to wait it out. Things went back up top, like the orders had to be amended. So while I was there waiting, things went left for me. So the Army, the crazy thing about it, sir, is this assault took place literally a couple days before I was supposed to get on the plane from O'Hare to Maryland to Germany, like 2 days.
Mm.
So they were tracking. My previous training command was tracking. They had already published the orders. They're thinking I got on that plane. I never made it to the plane. So there's just communication going on, which I see today. I actually went back through my emails. I got on Outlook and I was like, oh my God, everybody was talking back and forth like, hey, where you at? Or what's going on with this soldier? I'm like, and nobody knew that I was in a hospital in Chicago.
In a coma.
In a coma.
Right, yeah.
So BAMC, basically the military caught wind of it. They, contacted, got in touch with my emergency contacts and, previous unit. And, everything just kind of started to come full circle about what my condition was. And I got medevaced from the hospital in Chicago by helicopter to BAMC. And they did some procedures, skin grafting and everything to get my face back together. And I woke up in the ICU here in Texas, like, opened my eyes, and they were like, Sergeant Adams, welcome to Brooke Army Medical Center. You're in San Antonio. And I'm like, the last thing I remember was being on a cold table, stripped naked, getting machines hooked to me and needles and all this other stuff, and them doing a countdown and administering that. I just thought I was going into like a surgery or something, and I didn't know I was gonna wake up a month later in a different state.
Wow.
Missing my entire face, body wrapped up from head to toe and hooked to machines and everything. I was like, what? I didn't even know what took place. So another strange thing about that story is I wasn't getting paid. I was marked AWOL. And not to like put anybody on blast, and it's not necessary. It was just a lot of confusion on both sides. The previous command didn't release me, and the future command never gained me. So my finances, just everything got froze. So I was sitting in BAMC just waiting on somebody to gain me. I didn't even have a unit to gain. So it took a lot. The soldier recovery unit had to step in. They had to hurry up and try to do their best to get me in process and all of that, because I'm going through treatment this whole time, and I'm falling behind on all of my responsibilities. And, so I was just kind of like a soldier at large while going through recovery, while being in this traumatic place that I just woke up to. So, yeah, I won't deep dive, but that's pretty much what took place, sir.
No, and thank you for sharing all that, because you spoke with our students before, and that's why I really wanted to lay that out there, because it really impacted me hearing that, just the chaos that was going on. It wasn't just this traumatic injury, waking up in a new place, not knowing where you're at, but then the fiscal issues in terms of you weren't getting paid, so there's bills, you have children, you have all, there's just all these things. And so with all that hitting you at once, basically, and as you're coming to, how did you have the wherewithal? How did you have the mental toughness? Like, where does that come from to be like, all right, I'm gonna recover, I'm gonna do this, like because a lot of people would have just collapsed, like just maybe never came back from that. Like where do you find that drive to be like, all right, I'm gonna make all this right?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know how strong you are until you don't have any other choice but to be. And that's what it came down to. My back was against the wall. I'm in a dark place. I took these they took these wraps off my face, and I'm looking at this new appearance. I'm in a dark room every night in the hospital by myself. It's just me and God. My tears, my Bible, my spiritual things around me. I got family that I can call, and it's just, but ultimately it was just me and God, and I kept asking, like, why, God? Like, what do I do in this situation? Like, I can't fathom that I don't have a solution. I don't even see what you're trying to show me here. Like, how do I handle this? And I'm just, it started coming to me in my dreams at night, and it's like, just get through the day, because joy cometh in the morning. Like, you don't understand it right now. It's not meant for you to understand it in the moment. You're in the moment. Chaos is all around you. Just get to the next day and just keep working. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Exercise, eat right, read your Bible, communicate with people. Start accepting yourself for what you look like. You're alive. You didn't die. So it's got to be more to your life. There's got to be, a lesson in this. Even if this was the end all be all for my face, there's something that I can give back to the world. So that was one thing, is what I just said, and then two is, what do I have to live for? Who is depending on me? What do I love? Who do I know that loves me? If I give up, what's the second and third order effects? What's the snowball effect of me quitting because of my condition? Who gets hurt in this process? My children, left without a father. My mother, left without a son. My sister, she's left without a brother. My dad, left without a son. Like, all of the friends, the networks that I've created across the entire Army, like, who else would be affected by that? Maybe my death would impact them too greatly that it may be detrimental to their own lives and cause mental illness. And, I don't want to be the root cause of why my child becomes suicidal, depressed, having issues in life. My children or my mother, I don't know how hard she's going to take it if her son dies before she does. So I got to stick through this, because I also want to see these people again. I also want to be able to put smiles on their faces. I also want to continue to make my mother proud, which I promised her I would do. When we was homeless, when I was a child, my mom was homeless for 2-3 years, living in different relatives and attics and basements. We never had, like, something that, her name was on the lease. We have been evicted so many times. I always told myself, I said, I don't care what I go through in life. I know I'm going to have pitfalls. I know I'm not going to be perfect. Things are going to go wrong. Life has its highs and lows. But I always told my mom, I said, I'm always going to do something to try to make you proud. And every time I've ever crossed the stage, got an award in the military, then any favorable action that I've received, I've always either had my mom on the phone, FaceTime, something, a call. But she's like, hey, I seen you on Facebook. You got a coin. And I was like, I'm just trying to make you proud. I say that all the time. So when those thoughts start to go through your head, and those dark moments, when you're alone and you start thinking about giving up and you start feeling hopeless, you got to think about all of those things that are impacted by your loss. Like, impacted by, if you make that decision to unalive yourself, to take yourself out of the fight, there's actually a lot that can be impacted. There is a world of things that can be impacted in a negative way. And I just stay in that mindset.
No, wow, that's powerful, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
Because that was the main thing, you know, listening to you and your story is always like the resiliency. That was, you know, what I just thought about. So, what's your first memory of Captain Curtis? Can you like think back to, you know, the dietitian coming in the room? What was that interaction like?
I'll be honest, in the ICU, I was.
Yeah.
It was a lot of medication.
Yeah.
I was still getting surgery on my eyes for a while. Captain Curtis, you know, I couldn't even see. I just heard voices.
You just heard, yeah.
I just heard voices. I couldn't make out faces. I had my 2-star commander come visit me, and I didn't even know. I seen like a silhouette of him standing over me. It wasn't until like maybe 3 months after the ICU when I was able to read the card and the coin he gave me, and I was like, wait, General Jackson was here? What? Oh my God, 'cause he was my SFAB commander, my first SFAB commander, General Jackson. But I really, I'll go into the fondest memories.
Okay.
Is when I was having, I'm lactose intolerant, and they had to change my, I had a tube feed. I still got the scar on my stomach. I had a tube feed. I couldn't eat solids, anything like that. So they were feeding me from the tubes, but they were giving me like these Boost and Ensures and tube feed, and I was just having like things was going out.
Yeah, not a good response.
Things was going out, you know,
Yeah.
the back door
Yeah.
and the front door at the same time, and it was rough. And I was trying to tell them, I'm like, hey, you got to change, you know, this dairy product, like, and it was something Farms. The what was the new shake called? The
Kate Farms.
Kate Farms. Farms was it was a game changer. It was a plant protein that you implemented into my diet, and she came around to the room and she's like, you know, certain hours we got we got plant-based like protein shakes, and I was like it just blew me away that, you know, this type of adjustment could be made, you know, on my behalf. And I think I was the first patient to get the plant-based protein shakes for my tube feed. So it was like an honor, and that was like the first of my fondest moments with Captain Curtis. And I remember like nurses and like CNAs on the floor was like, oh, you special one, huh? You're like the golden patient because you got the special plant-based protein. Like, you know, like you got the plant-based protein shakes. And, like everybody else had Boost and Ensure, and I had this brand nobody heard of, Kate Farms. So we had that interaction as well, and that was the first of many fond interactions. I got more stories as well.
Yeah, because I mean, you were so just to kind of give a perspective, you were in the coma for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you inpatient at Brooke Army Medical Center?
About 6 months, sir. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll take that back. Correction. About 5 at Brooke Army, because I was in Chicago first.
Right. Okay.
For a good month before I got to Dempsey.
But still, 5. I mean,
So, yeah.
5 months. That's a long time to be in a hospital.
Yes.
So a lot there. So, you know, what was it like when your first, you know, kind of, because you had to do physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you talked a little bit about that. Like what was that like in terms of, because you were, and to paint the picture, before this injury, you were like super fit soldier, like super soldier, SFAB, right? I don't think ACFT was implemented, but you were probably like 300 PT score, you know, 600 ACFT score, like type soldier. And so now you wake up and you can't even walk, right?
Right.
So what was that? Can you kind of go through that a little bit of like, what was your mindset and you were thinking about? When they first started to the OTs and the PTs from the burn rehab, and shout out to them, burn rehab, burn clinic, when they first started getting me out the bed,
I couldn't take more than a step or two without vomiting and going, to the bathroom on myself. Like they had to walk. They used to have to hold a pan underneath me while I was like behind me while I was taking steps or in front of me. It's just that motion sickness you get from. I was horizontal for 30 days, so finally standing up vertically, like everything was just spinning, and it was a super nauseating and upset internal feeling. It's like everything was finally turned up this way. So, but I knew what I was, and even though I could only take a step or two, and that was progress every day, it goes back to taking one step at a time. I knew what I wanted to become. I knew what I was, and I knew what I wanted to become again. Because I still had this. I still had all my mental faculties, and I've been in the Army for so long. I'm conditioned. I'm wired differently. Like my mind is still telling me, you're a soldier. Like you're doing PT every morning. You're getting up every day, 4 or 5 o'clock. Like 30 days didn't rewire that. So I still had it in my mind that I'm gonna get back to what I was before all of this happened. And it's a mindset thing. I was just dead set on that. And the fact that every day they were coming in, one of the codas from the burn rehab, shout out to Tiffany Pittman, she'd come in the room early in the morning, like 7. Hey, you ready to do some walking? And I dreaded it at first because I didn't want to get up and get sick and have all of those reactions to the motion sickness and whatnot. But I had to grit my head down and do the work. And I'm like, let's go, let's get it. And slowly but surely, she got me from walking from the bed to taking 2 steps, from taking 2 steps to getting to the door of the room. Like that was a big accomplishment once upon a time. Like people don't think about that little stuff. Like there's some people who are happy to get up out the bed and just make it to the door and back to the bed, and that was the highlight of their day. Oh, I made it to the door. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow I'm going out into the hallway. Oh my God, this is big. This is big. And we walk up and down flights of stairs, run. You said, ma'am, you just ran a few miles yesterday, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we don't think about that. There's patients that are like, man, I made it to the door.
Right. No,
like, I'm going to the hallway. So now I'm like, I'm seeing myself making these progress. I'm going from the hallway to now we're doing steps. Now they're putting me on machines. I'm walking on a treadmill. Like I'm seeing my progress. So now my brain is signaling to the rest. It's saying we can make a comeback. We can make a comeback because I couldn't walk 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going up steps. I'm going up and down hallways. Pretty soon I'm gonna run. I'm gonna run again. Like I may be able to make a comeback. And something just a switch set off in my head. And I was like, maybe I can get my job back. If I get back to running, if everything gets to operating the way it was, forget the face. Just give me, they're already working on the prosthetics and things like that, the maxillofacial clinic. Everything from the neck down, if it's a well-oiled machine, there may be a chance for me to get back into the fight in any way, shape, or form. I don't care if I can't go back to the gun line. That's fine. But I still want to get back into the fight any way possible because this is in my DNA.
That's powerful. And thanks for sharing that. I want to jump back to Captain Curtis. So what was your memory of Sergeant First Class Adams when you met him? What's kind of your thoughts? Can you share?
Yeah, well, I think that it was like, oh my gosh, there's this soldier so ill, and what was nice is I was able to access his medical record, so I could see he was fit. He did have 300 or close to 300 PT tests. He had gone to the Army Wellness Center, so I already knew what his calorie expenditure daily was. I knew that he followed a plant-based diet before this injury, and that was, what his preference and lifestyle was. And then I went through several hundred pages of his medical record from Chicago and just trying to figure out what he received for nutrition. And he had lost over 20 pounds within that month, because I knew from military medical record to what he came in our facility with, and that's a pretty significant amount of weight loss. And he was pretty ill on, like you said, multiple organ failure. So I was like, okay, we have to stop this weight loss. We have to help him recover. He is having multiple surgeries, including a pretty major surgery to the face, and so he needs more nutrition to heal that. And, he hadn't really walked in a month. So it's like, we got to rebuild muscle too and stop from losing it so he can still function. So we did indirect calorimetry on him, which is a measurement of how many calories, an estimate of how many calories he's burning in a day. It was well over 4,000. And so we just started feeding and trying to get him up to that. And then it did take a few weeks. Like you said, he experienced a lot of vomiting, nausea. So we worked to get another formula that had a lot more fiber, was plant-based, justifying that. So really grateful that BAMC supported that. And then it was just a journey to get him back to eating regular food and working with physical therapy. So nutrition, physical therapy work really well together. They're exercising and we're helping rebuild that muscle. And so we did the tube feeding, and then eventually working with speech and language pathology, he was progressing to more of being able to eat and drink. And those were all successes when it was like, oh my gosh, you can have ice chips, right? And so he didn't have an upper lip to create enough pressure to swallow. And so he worked every day on strengthening muscle, being able to eat again, and went from mashed potatoes and just kept gradually increasing to more and more solid foods. And then when he was cleared to actually have real food, I said, what do you want? I'll bring you whatever you want to eat, right? When I feel like my goal is to treat every patient like how I want my husband to be treated, how I want my parents to be treated, my family. And especially when it's a soldier, they're your brother, sister in arms, you just do what you can to make life better.
No, and so that meal, that first meal? Because there's a burrito story in here, wasn't it? What was that first meal? I shouldn't be the surprise. What did you want? What were you craving? Everything.
I know people are gonna laugh at this. I was craving everything, but for me, I wanted Chipotle. I was craving it. I wanted a burrito bowl from Chipotle, and ma'am made it happen. She showed up at my room one day with that brown bag, and I smelled it, and I was like, this can't be happening, because I'm used to just whatever's on the menu at the hospital, just the hospital food, and to have Chipotle after going months of just tube feed and mechanical diet and just soft foods only, and like you said, ice chips. I got a bowl of Chipotle, and I dominated it. I didn't care. I didn't care. You left me alone. There was nobody in the room. It was clear. Pop that lid. I didn't care if I didn't have an upper lip. I didn't care if I had a drop from the scar. I just put my head over the bowl. And just whatever was falling out, I was gonna pick it back up. I'm but I don't think I tasted the food till after I finished it. That's how fast I ate it. So, but that was amazing. That was a turning point for me. Like, again, it's the little things to be grateful for. Like, some people just ride past Chipotle, but every time I ride past Chipotle, I say that was my first real meal in the hospital. Like, that was my first taste of the outside. I'll say.
So speaking of that, your first taste of the outside, there was something about, I remember correctly, looking out your rooms and you seeing, what was it, the Tower of Americas?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
I started to, when I was able to, actually it started in the ICU, and I was still all bandaged up. I couldn't walk. They would put me in a chair, like the OTs. They would put me in a chair, the coda, and roll me out to the window, so I can get out the room, at least have a view, and I would sit out at this glass window, and I would see like this Space Needle, Seattle Space Needle looking building, and I'm like, what goes on in there? Like, what is that? And they would say, that's the Tower of the Americas. And I'm like, one day, I'm going to get to that building. I'm going to go to the top of it. And that was another thing that I had in my mind while I was inpatient. I would always go to the window. I couldn't go outside. I would always go out to the window, and it was always a direct view at the Tower of the Americas. And I just was fascinated by it. It kept my attention while I was there. And I definitely did get to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you definitely got there. You were able to, talk about, you want to stay on active duty. So what was the turning point when, like, hey, I know I can do it? Outside, I know you were like, hey, if I can do all this thing. Was there a tipping point? Because didn't you take an ACFT, or like that first ACFT? Can you talk about that experience?
Yes, sir. I was actually, because I had a profile, and everything on the profile was like, 2-mile run, no. Push-ups, no. Sit-ups, no. But I'm doing the self-work, behind the scenes.
Nobody told you no. They just had other programs, but you're like,
I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
So, and I remember I'm going to my squad leader, going to the commander. I'm like, hey, I can take that ACFT that's coming up. Just, was it 30 days? I can do it and pass it. I didn't care about like maxing. It was something that I needed to fulfill mentally to say that I could still meet the standard. So if that meant 60 in each event, so be it. But I passed because, again, I went from just using bands to just walking for PT, just doing steps. But I'm in the barracks, the soldier recovery barracks, and I'm doing push-ups every night. And I'm like, all right, I got 10 of them. And every day, I'm like, tomorrow I'm doing 15. And I worked myself up. So, like, the ACFT had came up, and again, I wasn't invited, but I went. I went, and I was just like, just let me take it. It doesn't have to be for record.
Right.
Like, you're not. It's diagnostic, but it doesn't count for anything for the unit or nothing. I just want to be out there on the field. I had a full, like, face mask on at the time. I didn't have this half mask. I had a full face on, full winters, and I did more than meet the standard. I exceeded it, and that changed the minds of everyone in my leadership and the cadre around me. It was like, hey, this guy wasn't joking. Like, he got out there. I was supposed to do an alternate event because of my profile. I did a 2-mile run.
Wow.
I ran with the cadre. I smoked some of them. So
Yes.
I wasn't playing. I wanted to lead the pack.
Right.
I'm 340 on a deadlift, standing power throw. I'm getting 10.5, 11. Like, so I came out there to represent. I came out there to prove the point that I could still do this. My face means nothing. This is just, that's just what it is. It's gonna heal. It can be reconstructed. It can whatever they, the surgical plan is. That's nothing. But from hit down, I'm back. I'm back.
I love it. Very, very, I would say rarely has there probably been a situation where a soldier's fighting to take an ACFT,
Yes.
and to go out there and to crush it. I mean, that's inspiring. And so after that, I imagine cadre, everybody's like, all right, we're staying, he's got to stay on active duty. Is that kind of how it was? Like after that ACFT, did you encounter any more obstacles in terms of staying on active duty?
Yeah, just, there's change of commands that come in. They don't know you, and they're unaware of like your journey and what you've been through. So you have to reinforce what you've already gone through and what you've accomplished up to that point. So you do meet resistance, and then of course the MEB process as well. Dealing with the VA and a lot of people did try to discourage me. They tried to use, my face as a reason why I was unfit, and I just refused. Like I told my Pueblo, I told leadership, I told anyone who, doctors, surgeons that didn't believe in me, you can't make me want what I don't want. Like I'm not just gonna stop just because I see the word unfit. Like you're gonna have to push me out the door literally. You may have to peel this uniform off of me, because I set out early on in my career. Like this was never supposed to even go this far. I just wanted to do a contract at first because I was coming from rough conditions in Chicago. And I'm like, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. I'm going to set out and do something honorable. I'm going to do some service. I'm going to, the education benefits and all of that. So, and I'm going to get back in school. I'm going to do some service to my country. Give some service to my country. So, things just kind of started going great while I was in service. I had a knack for everything. Like it started to be, everything just kind of came easy to me. I didn't know I was high speed until I felt like the PT test was actually a low bar. And I was like, oh, this is a PT test. People complaining like 50 push-ups? Like I'm doing 75 in my barracks room before bed. Like, I'm good. Getting up, putting the uniform on, right place, right time, be where you're supposed to be. And do what you're told. Say, Roger, drive on. I'm like, I can do that. That's easy.
It's too easy.
That's light. Like the hardest part of my day was the PT.
Yeah. So
everything else was do as you're told. And then, being an artilleryman, like a 13 Bravo, I was getting promoted. I went to combat. I went out there as a PFC. I came back a sergeant in Afghanistan. This was 2011. So I got that. I got my stripes, like some hard stripes, and I'm like, oh, I'm taking this all the way. So from then I said, there's only two ways I'm getting out the Army, sir. 9 or 20. Mm. And I had to explain that to one of my soldiers. They was like, hey, Sergeant, what do you mean 9 or 20? I said, I'm either going to make E9 or I'm going 20 years. Like 9 or 20. There's no other way around it. I'm wired. I'm changing the way my brain is wired because I like what I'm doing. I see that I'm skilled. I'm technically, tactically proficient. Like I'm good at leading. I'm good at training. Like I'm great. I'm exceeding the standard at everything. So I know I can make E9 at this track that I'm going on, and I know I can make it to 20 years. There's no other exception.
Oh, that's awesome. I like it. 9 or 20. That should almost be a shirt. Speaking of which, so you're also, what you have done now, you've transcended kind of the Army, like the reach in terms of you're inspiring folks outside of the Army, doing Rise Up. Am I correct? You want to talk about that kind of that project and things you're doing with that?
Yes, sir. So Rise Up was inspired by the journey that I went through in the hospital. It was basically a thought about, it was ideas that I had, just getting out the bed, rising up every day, taking steps forward to get better. And I was just like, that's it, rise up, rise up. And then I just came up with an acronym for it. And the acronym was just inspired by other people telling me that my journey was inspiring them. And I sat down, I do a lot of writing in my personal time, and I put all my thoughts on paper and document my journey, and I just started writing around the word rise up, and I was like, remember to inspire someone every day. You're inspiring someone every day. And I was like, that could be what RISE stands for. That's the meaning of RISE. I turned it into an acronym. I said, remember to inspire someone every day. Oh.
Yeah, no. It's
And that's been my whole mission with that brand, is just to inspire people. That's all. It's not even about the clothes, honestly. Clothes are just statement makers. I get on social media and I talk. I'm as human as possible. This is not a facade. There's no smoke and mirrors. I'm genuinely gonna give you me and everything that I'm going through. In my lowest moments, my highest moments, I'm gonna share it with you. And that's what I want my brand to be known for, the inspiration. Like, there's people that wake up every day, and your voice or your testimony can be the reason that they made it through that day. That's why I said earlier, joy cometh in the morning. Like, I just need you to focus on getting through the day, because even if you have a bad day, we're all gonna have them. There's transitions that we're all gonna go through in life. Sometimes when you're at your lowest moments and when you're in those transitions, that's when you take on the most attacks. That's when you're really in the most vulnerable space, because you're confused, you're trying to figure it out, you're lost, you're asking God, why me? Instead, you should be asking God, why not me? Like, I was chosen for this. So if I can take the pressure that I'm undergoing and be resilient and get through it, and then share that testimony with the rest of the world, I could care less about if the million people is clicking like or agrees with what I'm saying. There is always one person that is gonna catch on to that message, and it may change their entire life. It may change their entire trajectory. And it happens to me on a regular basis when I'm in public. I got like TikTok famous off of a video. I didn't even expect it to go to the lengths that it was, like 37 million views. And I was just showing people how I drink through a straw instead of like how I drink. I literally just put a little caption at the top of the video, like, how do I drink? And I just showed people, like, hey, this is what happens if I try to drink from a regular cup. I can't, because it'll spill out the side from the scar and the drop, right? And then so I was like, so I just use a straw with everything, and then people just like, that's the content. That's it. That's what we want to see. And I was like, I didn't know what to do with all of that. It was just like notification after notification. But I'll be at Target or Walmart or something, sir, and like somebody will come up to me like, hey, they'll grab my hand, they'll grab my shoulder, like, hey, I seen your video. That changed my life. you give me a lot of hope, man. Like I thought I had it bad. I really thought my life was terrible. And then I seen your video, and I was like, you know what? I got it good. Like, I'm tripping. I'm stressing. It's not that bad. Like, and when I hear stuff like that, the naysayers, the haters, the negativity, the people that, project, you know, negativity onto me because of my condition, because it is some of that stuff in the comments. I pay it no mind because there are actually good-hearted, genuine people out here, and people that need and want to hear that message, that or they just want to see my journey because it's getting them through their day. So it's nothing that you can say to me to deter me or to bring me down or like put me into one of those thinking traps. You can't do that to me because I know my impact and I know what God put me here for. You know? And if you actually wanted to deter me, like if you actually wanted to do some damage to me, you probably should have called me 10 years ago. Because I've had lower moments. I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with extreme depression. I've had terrible anxiety. I used to pull over to the side of the road on the way to work and have panic attacks because I couldn't control the racing. I would tense up and I'm like, I got to get to the shoulder. Get it all out. Talk myself through it, count down, so like you kind of, you're late to the party. My faith is at an extreme high, and my vision is where it's gonna be, and it's where it's gonna stay. And that's just what it's gonna be.
No, I love that, and thanks for sharing all that. And then, yeah, I wanted to talk is that, I mean, again, like what you're doing now is beyond even the Army in terms of inspiring folks. Captain Curtis, real quick before we forget, is that ISR fellowship that you did. Can you talk about that scenario that allowed this great thing, this meeting to happen?
Yeah, so I've joined the Army. Same thing. Was only going to do one contract and leave, and was enlisted, and then had this great opportunity at our graduate program in nutrition to become a dietitian, Army dietitian, and so had some opportunities for leadership at other sites, and then this opportunity came up for the first training with industry at the U.S. Army Institute of Surgical Research. And so they are the leader in battlefield medicine and burn and wounds, and really doing research and development to help the warfighter, like Sergeant Adams, recover from any injury that they may experience. And so I applied for that and was selected, and I spent a year there with Miss Beth Shields and Dr. Cancio, just learning about what critical illness is, learning about trauma, burn, and nutrition, physical therapy, the multidisciplinary team on how to care for these patients. And then I've taken what I've learned, and applied it to the battlefield and looking at potentially prolonged field care. How can we feed service members earlier? What can we feed them? What do they need? So it was a really great opportunity and experience. It's changed my entire life trajectory because I love critical care nutrition, and you get to meet inspiring people like Sergeant Adams, and he's the epitome of what I think of with military nutrition. He was healthy and fit and had a healthy diet that helped allow that. And because of that, when he experienced this critical illness, I think he was able to overcome it. And he lost a lot of weight. He had critical care nutrition with tube feeding, with IV nutrition, and then gradually learned how to eat again with different textures and thicknesses of fluids. And then it's been more of a performance nutrition focus for how to regain all the muscle he's lost, and how to regain all of his performance goals, like getting a 600 on the ACFT. And so it has been a really rewarding journey, and to work with many patients, but especially Sergeant Adams.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is beautiful because this is Army medicine. Not to be cheesy, but
Yeah.
these type of relationships and
Yeah.
what can happen. Thank you so much for being on here, both of you, and sharing this story. Again, it was so unique, and you came and spoke to our students. Your resiliency, you're definitely inspiring people. The Rise Up, is a done deal, and I also know your other mission of making your mom proud. I'm sure she's gonna listen to this. Hopefully, watch this in the video. Yeah. You should be. You want to give her a shout out? You want to?
My mom, Bridget.
Yeah. So she should be very, very proud.
Yeah.
But
she'll make you proud.
Yeah. Thank you for coming to the show. Any last kind of closing thoughts or anything? You share any?
Just think, like you said, this is Army medicine. I am honored because I get to serve the best of America, and that is why I put on my uniform every day. And the opportunities for nutrition here in the Army, and being able to help develop future dietitians and work with you, Sergeant Adams, is just, I never imagined it when I signed my first contract. So thank you so much for all of that.
First, want to say thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for all of the effort and the resources and the time that you put into my case while I was critically ill, because I don't want to get choked up,
I know,
but it, honestly, it changed the entire trajectory of my healing process and my health and fitness, and it's part of the reason why I'm in the fight still to this day. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Well, it's my pleasure. You did all the hard work. I was trying to catch up with your 2-a-days in the gym and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, thank you for having me on this platform. Thank you for giving me this platform to speak, and also thank you for supporting me on my journey as well. It's so many people and departments that I can thank, because it was a team. It was teamwork. You know how they say teamwork make the dream work. So it wasn't an individual effort. I'm here because of all of the support that I received from Brooke Army Medical Center, my fellow soldiers, my peers, my family, my friends, and last but certainly not least, but always the highest priority on my list, God.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your story and your inspiration. So with that is the show today. What a great show. I mean, everybody is going to be listening to this, sharing it. I've learned so much from both of you. So thanks for coming on the show. And that's it.